What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. Joined as always by my co-host Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's up, brother?
Man, it is a beautiful Saturday. As we're recording this, beautiful Saturday day. Uh, yeah, just looking at looking forward to talking some more Falcons football here. So
Yeah. I just got back from the local park walking the dogs with my little girl. She hit me up with like, "Let's go take the dogs on a walk," and I was like, "Sure, why not?"
there
Out of the blue, let's just go take the dogs for a walk. And
you go.
uh, so we did that, which it was windy out there, so that made it a
Hmm.
little tough. And but other than that, it was a good day. It was a good morning.
Good.
So, um, what we're doing today is we are putting our GM hats on, so to speak. We are sitting down for the annual draft meeting, right? Uh,
Yep.
that all the clubs do. They sit down and go over, okay, where are we at roster wise? What do we need to be really like honing in on as far as the draft itself is concerned? So that's what we are planning to do today. So with the the major like push of free agency being done,
Hmm.
um, this will be the first time we've gone into the draft where Terry hasn't necessarily addressed all the needs per se. Now, we're still a month out. This is the initial draft meeting. This could then spur on, not this particular meeting with me and you, but this time could spur on them making some more moves so that they're not pigeonholed into any kind of corner. Because that's what, like, Terry doesn't, at least the past three drafts, we have seen that Terry doesn't like to be backed into a need corner per se. Do you get that
Right.
same kind of feeling?
Yeah. He like I think most GMs would prefer this. If they don't, I don't understand the thought process there. Like because going into the draft is or drafting any player, whether it's a quarterback, edge rusher, running back, doesn't matter. Though running back tends to be a little bit more bust proof a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Bless you.
excuse me. Um, but yeah, because it's such a crapshoot, you don't want to have to be like, well, this pick is a make or break pick for us,
Right.
right? And that's why this year is if you're a QB needy team, especially in the top three, like whoever goes one, two, or three, you're probably going to get a pretty good prospect.
Yeah, as
And
far as like, yeah, as far as prospects go, the top three QB prospects are as good as they have been in recent years.
yep,
Um, Especially
but
like compared to last year and
yeah,
the year before last.
yeah, but it's just one of those situations where you want to be able to go in and like when your pick comes up, whether you've traded back, traded up. Now, obviously, if you're trading up, you believe that you're trading up for a guy of a specific person, and because you're giving up a certain amount to get them, right?
Right.
But whether you're trading back, whether you're standing pat, doesn't matter. When you get to that pick, you want to be able to look at your board and like based on our evaluations, who is the best guy we can possibly get. And as long as you're doing that consistently, uh, without worry about, you know, we really need a starter over at this position, in the worst way. So we have, because then that can compromise, the rest of your board. Do you take, okay, we got this guy, he's the best player, but we don't have a right tackle, for example.
Right. So
Okay.
do you take the best overall player or
The
your
best,
30th best overall player, but he's your best right tackle?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
that's always like the debate. And the the past 3 years, by the time we have gotten to the draft, every need had been checked going into the draft, which really gave Terry the flexibility to do what he's done, which gave us, whether it worked out or not, we can argue that all day long, but it gave you the flexibility of getting, Kyle Pitts at 4, a Drake London at 8, and a Bijan at 8, you know,
Mhm.
because there wasn't one need that you had to have. Um, so you could be a lot more flexible, which is the philosophy that he has stated, right?
Mhm.
Uh, So up to this point in free agency or up to this point in the off season, you've checked like some of your biggest needs, especially
Mhm.
on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Like you got your signal caller. So now you don't necessarily have to mortgage your future to move up into that top 3 you were talking about to get a quarterback. So that's a major need struck off right there. You went out and signed Darnell Mooney and you traded for Rondell Moore and you signed Ray McLeod or McDonald. It's McDonald?
McLeod.
McLeod. Um, yeah, Ray something, yeah, McLeod. So now you can be sitting there at 8 and not necessarily feel like you have to take another skill position when you may not want to. Like Malik Neighbors may be sitting there at 8 and people be like, oh my God, you got to take him or Roma Dunze or whatever. But if he's your highest graded player, sure, you could take it, but you don't feel like you have to.
Yeah.
Because as we've talked about many times before, with Zach Robinson coming in, 11 personnel is probably going to be like we're going to go from 26% that Arthur Smith ran in the last few years to probably closer to 70 or 80%, which is in between the Vikings and the Rams as far as running 11 personnel.
Yeah.
Uh, so you're going to need more wide receivers, obviously. So you
Yeah.
go in. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you bring back a couple guys, or you bring back at least one guy, Kadero Hodge, from last year, and you brought in a bunch of other guys. Though, especially with the new kickoff rule that's coming in this year, I see a lot of people talking about this, and they're like, just put it back to the way it was. But like before the last year's model, they wanted to go back to the way it was before then, and I'm like, but like if you go and watch the XFL, like this style of kickoff will actually bring returns back to the kickoff
Yeah.
because you don't want to give somebody the starting field position of the 35. You don't want to give them the 40, so you're going to kick it somewhere in between the goal line and the 20, or you're going to do everything you can to get there. And then you know if you catch it, there is no more fair catches. There is no more anything like that. If you catch it in between the goal line and the 20, you have to run the ball. You have to bring it out, and it's going to bring a lot more excitement. So the pickup of a Ray McLeod is exciting in that respect because he's a really good return guy.
Mhm.
Um, and so you're going to see more excitement out of the return game, uh, not just on the punting side, but from the kickoff side as well. So there's that. But then you also bring in, Darnell Mooney, bring in Rondell Moore. But I think Rondell Moore, it was kind of weird that, I didn't realize, I thought he was probably like 25, 26, because it feels like he's been in the league a little bit. But it turns out he's still only 23 years old. So you still got a young guy that's going to come in, has a lot of talent. Let's see if we can maximize that talent. Same
Right.
thing with Darnell Mooney. But this then allows you to, like you said, if Roma Dunze is there, if Malik Neighbors is there, but you feel like the drop off between those, because Harrison's probably going top 4, top 5.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Marvin Harrison for sure. It's going to
uh,
be if there's one sitting there, I would imagine it's either a Doomsday or Neighbors.
yeah. Uh, and so, but when you look past Harrison, and we don't even know necessarily what teams now think of Harrison, uh, having skipped his pro
Right.
day and the combine. Um, we don't necessarily. I'm assuming it's not going to hurt his draft status,
I
but
wouldn't think so from listening to a lot of like connected talking head types who have more insight than we have, they seem to think it's not hardly like he was told by GMs that they didn't need to see anything else from him. And so, um, with that being said, if the GMs are telling you, "No, you're good. We don't need to see anything else," then why would you take the risk of injury before you get cemented to where you're going to be?
Yeah.
So, um, I
But the
initially
Well, what I was trying, and it was a long-winded way of me getting there, so I apologize for that. But the basic gist is like, okay, we've got some guys that have performed at the NFL level in the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3/4 slot. We've got those guys. So we have what we believe to be our number one in Drake London,
right.
right?
Mhm.
So if what you're looking for is you don't have to have that stud receiver, you just need a guy to complement Drake, then there's a lot of options out there for you.
Right. Yep.
Whether it's first round, second round, third round, fourth round, probably maybe as late as the fifth round. There are tons of options out there. One of my favorites that probably won't be there when we go in the second round is like Xavier Worthy. I would love to have him. He would be like the absolute perfect complement on the like opposite Drake London or even right next to him because Drake London is not the speedster, but you get a Xavier Worthy out there who is that speedster, can really command a lot of attention, open a lot of things up, but then also just blow the top off of defenses from time to time. So,
Right.
uh, I think they've done a really good job for the most part of where I think when they pick at 8 or whether they move back a few picks or whatever, they're going to have plenty of options for some of the spots where they maybe haven't had as good a luck
Mhm.
getting guys to come in. So,
Yeah, and and speaking of that, like not for the lack of trying,
mm-hmm,
but we have yet to really add an edge rusher.
mm-hmm,
And I figured even by now, if we hadn't been able to add one, that we may have brought back Bud Dupree, and we haven't done that yet either.
mm-hmm.
Both him and Calais Campbell, who uh, combined for what 12 and a half sacks, um, are still sitting out there. Which I mean, somebody like Calais Campbell is probably weighing his options of whether he even wants to play again, or if he wants to ride off into the sunset kind of deal. But you figure a guy like Bud Dupree's, definitely wants to continue playing. He's only 30, 31, I believe. So, you got to feel like he's not done, or he's got to feel like he's not done. But the team itself has reportedly been in on Daniil Hunter. Was monitoring the Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack situation. And by some reports, the latest one being from Jeremy Fowler about Hassan Reddick. Um, right now, the Cardinals are the biggest name to watch for a reunion out there in the desert, but he does throw in there that Atlanta could be lurking as well. So they're trying,
Yeah.
but as of yet, they have not added a a pass rusher. Now, sitting there at 8, you're probably in good position to get one. But as we
Mm-hmm.
kind of talked about earlier, is that going to meet up? Is the Dallas Turners, Jared Verse, Loy Latu, do those guys are they in the top 10 of BPA overall for Terry? Or are they more in like the middle range? Do the Falcons like in their draft meetings are they like seriously exploring trying to trade back?
Yeah. Like it depends on which one of those guys they view as the best fit for them.
Right.
So, in my personal opinion, okay, I think the absolute best fit and the best guy to pick up to get the most immediate impact is Latu. I think he's that.
Mhm.
I think he's the guy you pick. And if he's the pick, we can only do so much prior to this, but in the mock drafts that both I've done, me and you've done, uh, and mock drafts we've looked at, Latu ends up like somewhere in the mid first to even like I think I've seen him go as late as like 19 20 in somewhere in the early 20s.
Mhm.
So if you feel like that's a guy you can get, moving back to say 14, 15, get a couple extra picks and for this year, and then you still go get this guy who you believe is the best guy for you, not
Mhm.
necessarily the best player available, but just the best guy for you and what you're trying to do, then that's awesome. You know,
I
that's really cool.
I did a mock draft last night and just messing around. I was like, I'm gonna fix this pass rush by gosh, if they're not gonna sign
Saw that.
anybody. And I got like I traded back. Obviously, I did some funny trades. Like I wasn't nothing that I think would actually be serious because I ended up with what 8 picks in the first 4 rounds. Um,
Nice.
but I got like Jared Verse, Chris Jenkins, Brandon Fisk, Marshawn Nealon, and Jonah Ellis. It's like I'm gonna fix this pass rush.
Yep.
Um, but no, to me, that's got to be like the biggest conversation that Atlanta is having pre-draft right now. Is okay, like we have thrown the bag at the offense this year. Last year, you threw the bag at the defense with signing Jesse Bates. You brought in a lot of players, like obviously David Onyemata and Caden Ellis was your big three pieces on defense, and then you brought in a lot of 1 year contracts. Well, right now you don't technically, without doing any kind of like restructuring extensions or anything like that, you don't technically have the money to even sign your draft class right now. Okay. Um, so I fully expect something to happen with somebody, whether it's extending, AJ Terrell and dropping his cap hit, whether it's, um, you know, restructuring Grady or Jesse or Chris Lindstrom or David Onyemata, any of those guys, the
Yeah.
guys that you know are going to be here for the next 2 or 3 more years, probably. Like those guys, you would feel okay restructuring, but you're going to have to do something. And part of me wonders is if them trying to hammer out something with Philadelphia for Hassan Reddick might be what's holding up any more movement, because they may be trying to figure out what they got to do there. But past pass rusher, like if we move off the pass rusher, what
Mhm.
is something else that like okay, you got to come out of this draft with? It could not
Um,
sure what round per se, but you
yeah,
know, like hey, we got to come out of this draft with this position.
probably cornerback.
Yeah, I was thinking corner or
A lot of people are going
safety.
to say offensive line, but hey, like the kind of offense that we were running the last couple seasons has a lot of long uh, like plays that take a long time to do.
Right.
So when you're doing the pass rush or the pass protection on those, you are probably going to see, and you're doing that on a consistent basis. You're going to see more pressures because it takes more time to develop.
Mhm.
I think what we're going to see probably more so with Zach Robinson and the offense that we're going to get this year. Probably going to see a little bit more of a quick hit, like 3-step, maybe
Yeah,
5-step, but it's going to be they want to get that ball out quick.
it's gonna be that
Uh,
in rhythm, like 3 step drop, boom, throw the ball.
yeah, that's what they're planning on. That's what they're hoping for. Is it always going to work out in every game? No, but I
Of course.
think if you can as much as possible stay in rhythm, uh, by and large, this offensive line I think is good enough as is to give your quarterback time to do what he needs to do. Okay. McGarry, is he the best guy at right tackle when it comes to pass protection? No. Is he the worst? No.
Right.
Uh, but so he gives you good enough there for now. So do I think you go up and pick a Joe Alt and then it's like, well, what do you do there? Um,
I mean, you
I just don't
could
know.
like, I don't know. Like Terry's always said that he's not afraid to add to a position of strength. So if for some crazy reason nobody's coming up for Joe Alt and Joe Alt is sitting there, then maybe that is what he does. And
Maybe.
because the theory now is like, well, let's get the best five offensive linemen out there, you know. And so if you get Joe Alt, I mean, next year you could get out of McGarry's contract like pretty easily. So it could be a deal where, you know, you let McGarry and Alt uh, have a battle during camp, and whoever wins wins. And then that may also be like your eventual heir apparent for Jake Matthews. Like it wouldn't be like I wouldn't be mad about Joe Alt by any
Yeah.
stretch of the imagination. Um, but especially if you shore up the pass rush, because like we've said before, there's no like real solid blue chip guy. Like if you get a Hassan Reddick and then in the second round grab a Chop Robinson or a the
Nealand.
yeah Nealand or whatever, that could be talent wise about the same as sticking at 8 and getting Latu versus or Turner. They're like a tick better, but um, it's not clear cut in that aspect of dominance. So, but I agree with you on I think the secondary needs some because you got to determine, hey, are we going to sign AJ to an extension? If we're not going to sign AJ to an extension, then we need to get somebody in here who can then take over for AJ, right?
Yeah.
So is that Terrion Arnold? Is that Kool-Aid McKinstry? Quinion Mitchell at 8? And then you got other guys like Cam Hart that you can probably grab in the second or third round. And then there's Rickshaw from Missouri. Aaron Rickshaw. I can't remember. His first name starts with an E. Ernest Rickshaw, I think maybe is his name. So like you got options there, and then we can almost definitively say now that Richie Grant has not panned out. So
No,
do you?
but if they felt the same way as we did, you would have thought, okay, if we had come out of this free agency period with just Darnell Mooney, or even Rondale Moore, and then kept Kadero Hodge, and we didn't spend the money on Mooney, but instead spent it on a more of a strong safety, a guy who's maybe a little bit more strong safety than a free safety, but can do the free safety stuff. So you can have your split field looks, you can have different guys do different things in different situations, different things like that. But we haven't seen that. They looked at. I'm assuming the coaches all looked at the roster, looked at the tape, probably talked to a bunch of guys and everything. We believe that Richie Grant hasn't panned out, and maybe that's true. But maybe these coaches see something that they can work with on that. Don't know. Either way, we don't know for sure that that's their thinking.
Right. And your top guys, like, with that being said, like, you still got some, like, safety names out there on the market, like bigger names,
Yeah,
depending on whether they fit or not. You got Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs, Julian Blackman, Jamal Adams, and Eddie Jackson, just to name a handful, right, that are still sitting out there on the market. So, again, we're about a month out. This is what I would consider to be our initial talks of, okay, what else do we need to try to nail down before we go into the draft, or where do we feel like we need to shore up, or we got to come out of the draft with X.
yeah,
And I think the biggest things that you've got to come out of the draft with this year is an edge rusher, is a secondary type, probably two secondary types, a safety and a corner, unless you feel pretty good about Clark Phillips. He played quite a bit towards the end of last year. You still have Jerry Gray here, so um, they may feel like Clark Phillips has got something to add there.
yeah,
They have yet to cut or restructure Mike Hughes, so maybe they are feeling like he's going to be the answer, the opposite of AJ. Because I think it was rumored that Jerry Gray was the one who was interested in Hughes. At least, like he seemed like he was heading up. Every time he talked, it was definitely about the secondary last year. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Yes, yes.
So it seemed like it almost was like you had the front seven and then the back, five or whatever it is. Yeah, back five. Yeah, nope, six. No,
You,
six.
it's usually 5 or 6.
Yeah, I can. My brain's not mathing right now, but it seemed like the front seven was, you know, uh, Ryan Nielsen's, and then the secondary was Jerry Gray's. You know,
Yeah,
so yeah, I definitely think that you got to come out of this draft with one of those three positions, not like one of the positions, but one in each of those positions.
yeah. So if I were to rank my, and again, this is my personal list. The as far as needs go for this team, I'd say number one, edge. Number two, D line, interior D line. I would really like to see a sizable nose tackle, whether it's Tavondre Sweat or somebody else.
Yeah,
Um,
I was digging into those, and outside of Devondre Sweat, I haven't seen just a space eating nose yet per se.
and maybe they don't go with it this year. Maybe they're just like
Right.
the options are limited, so we just make do with the best we got. Maybe
Hmm.
they're looking at guys to see who gets cut post June 1st type situations. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I think edge. I think interior defensive lineman. And if you don't go with the Devondre Sweat, I would really like to see Braden Fisk show up. But I
Yeah.
think those two along, basically the defensive line needs at least one interior and one edge guy picked up in this draft.
Hmm.
Then it goes cornerback. Then it goes maybe linebacker.
Yeah, you could
Well, no, no, no,
probably.
no. I would say cornerback, then wide receiver, then linebacker is kind of the hierarchy for me when it comes to what this team needs. Because I feel like you bring Landman. Landman's coming back. You're probably going to have Ellis and Landman as your interior guys. You're I would like, and we've talked about this before. I would like to see Troy Anderson play a little more outside linebacker, use his athleticism and everything for him to rush the passer a good bit, but also be able to go out and get into, especially in man situation. I think he's probably better in a man situation than he is in zone. So he can be like, this is my guy. I'm going to focus on my guy. I don't have to worry about or think about zone protections and where's is this guy coming in? Is he leaving? Do I need to pass him off? It's just this is my guy. Stick with my guy.
Right.
So I
And
feel
it,
like that's a good spot for him.
yeah, I think I'm with you on that hierarchy makes a lot of sense. As far as the hierarchy of needs, edge being top need, like an alpha edge. Now, I don't know
Mhm.
if you're necessarily going to get one in the draft. Maybe maybe we get Hassan Reddick before we get to the draft. Who knows? But I think you do need an alpha edge because right now you got um, a lot of role players, and
Eh, well, and maybe also one of the things that especially now that they're going to be an outside linebacker, somebody like an Arnold Ebiketie, who while the number he was I think second maybe third in sacks on the team with like 6.5, somewhere in that range. Um, the like if you look at his win rate percentages, they were probably the best on the team, and he's a guy that didn't get a whole bunch of snaps throughout
right,
the year. So maybe they're looking at that and saying like, why are we not? Why is this guy not playing more?
why is
Let's get
he
it
being featured more?
right. So get him out there more. And now you're talking, if he could say double the snaps that he did last year, maybe you're looking at a guy that's 9, 10, 11, 12 sacks. And then that becomes, I'm not saying he'll be your alpha, but
Oh well, that
you
becomes
just,
your
you just,
focal point. Yeah, you're
yeah,
dominant.
you just never know.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But I think I'm with you as far as like it's to me like edge, interior. So it's like D line, right?
Yeah.
Like D line, cornerback, potentially safety. I think you
Mm.
could. The longer these guys sit out on the market, the easier it is. I think that we could end up with like a Quandre Diggs or something like that. maybe even after the draft, it might pick up. But safety to pair with Jesse Bates, and then um, linebacker, I'm not as concerned about per se because of guys like D'Angelo Malone who are on the roster, Troy Anderson coming back, and plus I think you could probably grab one in the later rounds. But
Mhm.
a talented like route running savant type wide receiver, like I've had my eyes. There's three guys I've had my eyes on as far as this draft is concerned, and that's like a Lad McConkey, a Ricky Pearsall, and then a Luke McCaffrey. Like those are the guys who get separation because of the way they run routes and their suddenness, and it can constantly get separation. It can be that maybe not this year, but that solid um, like chain mover
Yeah.
type guy, like a Hunter Renfro earlier in his career kind of deal.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think there's going to be some more movement before we get to the draft because I just don't feel like Terry's going to want himself backed in the corner and like having to come out of the draft with certain positions, but they may not be super splashy. But I think that covers a good base for this first like initial draft meeting as we really get moved into and geared into the draft season. Um, anything that's like got you excited, like draft wise?
I mean, I'm excited because there's so much of the things that we need, of our top needs. There's just a lot, like, there's a lot of depth in this draft for things like edge rushers, for things like not necessarily the space eater nose tackle guy, but there's a lot of guys out there as far as like interior defensive line. There's a
Right.
lot of cornerbacks out there. There's a lot of wide receivers. So like there a lot of good talent deep into this draft. That again, the one position I can say that we can look at and say we need, like you said, the alpha version of that is edge,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
don't necessarily need an alpha interior line guy. We
No.
don't need an alpha, the best offensive line on out of the draft for the offensive line. Although, like you said, maybe they go with a Joe Alt because you don't mind adding to his strength. But at the end of the day, the one position, wide receiver, we've got our one. We
Mhm.
really need a complement to him. Uh, Maybe that is Mooney. Maybe they
Yeah. Right.
view
Maybe
Mooney
that's
as that.
Mooney, and maybe they feel like expanding Rondell Moore's like skill set or like his chances would bring out more out of him. I
Yeah,
know I was listening to the Athletic podcast and Nate Tice, who I respect quite a bit as far as his opinion. Like he called Rondell Moore a running back. He's like, that's what he is. He's a running back. And I was like, man, it's going to be interesting to see how they choose to use him. You know,
yeah. I
um,
mean, probably a lot of a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of
hmm
probably like little short stuff to try to get him into space.
right.
He'll be the guy underneath a lot of clear out routes, probably. Something over the middle, jerk routes, those kinds of things to try to get him separation, try to get him into space, and let him make plays in space.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot of his usage. And you put him you motion him over and have a trip set with Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and him, and have London and Mooney do clear outs. That's a potential recipe for success. So,
Yeah. And we'll see how all that plays out. All right. Well, folks, we appreciate y'all sitting in on this initial draft meeting. We'll be back live on Tuesday to have our normal show, maybe something fun to talk about.
yeah,
Always the possibility of guests as I reach out to people to come on the show. But
we'll
as
probably do another mock draft.
uh,
And that'll probably be a week. In my view, that could be a weekly thing. As we get closer, things get more
start to
uh, focused
clarify.
in.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we may do that. We probably will do like spend a good chunk of the show doing a mock draft and talking about it because, hey, that's where we're at right now. It is.
Yeah.
It is. We are fully entrenched in draft season. So as always, folks, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grimm1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan.
At Jonathan M. Holder, come by and say hi.
There you go. And like I said, keep an eye on the channel. We'll be back live on Tuesday. And as always, Falcons fan, rise up.
Rise up.